Welcome to this episode with Emee Estacio. And today we're going to be talking about imposter syndrome and if you have it and what to do with it. Welcome, Emee.
Thank you very much for having me, Myra. It's great to be here.
You're welcome. So tell me, how do we know what imposter syndrome is in the first place?
Right. Well, imposter syndrome is something very common. You can see it flying around social media right now, and a lot of celebrities saying that they actually have it. But what's the difference between imposter syndrome and being an actual imposter? For those with imposter syndrome, it's this persistent feeling of self-doubt, incompetence, and inadequacy, despite evidence that shows otherwise. So you may be good at what you do, you may be bringing in results, and you have success, but you feel as if you don't deserve the success. And you feel as if people are going to find out that you're just faking it. So it's very common among early career professionals, and for those people who are stepping into new roles. So, for example, you might be in your career for 25 years and then suddenly you made a shift. You started working online, or you're given new tasks and new responsibilities in your current job, and you feel as if it is outside of your comfort zone. You still do it because you have to, but you feel as if you're faking it. You feel as if, I think people are gonna find out that, I'm just winging it. So it's that feeling of, a lack of competence, the inability to internalize success, the feeling of not being good enough, and worried that people are going to find out that you're a fraud.
I guess I can in certain ways actually now quite understand what you're saying, because when I came online 7 years ago, I very much felt that. I have had at that stage more than 15 years experience in building offline businesses very successfully. But then when I came online, I found it very intimidating. And I worked with large corporate clients and CEOs of international companies, and I felt like all of a sudden I had no confidence.
So I can water.
So I can really, it was completely out of my comfort zone. And I think also 7 years ago when I came on, there was a lot of cyberbullying going around. I don't see it that often anymore. I do see it, but not as often as I used to then. It's starting, I think, the last 2 years or so, I've seen it less and less happening, which is brilliant, especially amongst women. Okay.
People are being kinder.
Yes, and more open to admit, you know what, I need help. And also more open towards each other and more supportive of each other, which is really a very nice thing to see online. Because like I said, when I came online 7 years ago, that's one thing that I really hated. And at that stage, I came very close to just giving up. I didn't want to be a coach anymore because I just thought, you know what, I really don't need
Not worth it.
Yeah. So now I understand why you say why we can feel like we're an imposter, and you're not really one.
You're not. It's recognizing that you have transferable skills. So even if you are new in the space, you're bringing in experience, you're bringing in knowledge and skills that could contribute to that new role. What most people who experience imposter syndrome forget is when you move out of your comfort zone, that's actually when you grow. You might be new, but when you practice more, when you gain more experience, it gets easier, because you're doing it again and again and again. But obviously, when you are starting, it's normal, it's normal to feel that way. And for people who are high achievers, they are always trying to challenge themselves and push themselves, they take in new tasks, they take in new challenges, and sometimes, as you've said, these new environments and these new roles, it takes you out of your comfort zone, and you feel as if you're not as competent as you want to be when you are in your comfort zone. So it actually does make sense. 70% of us will experience imposter syndrome at some point in our working lives, and it's not that you're going to cure imposter syndrome. For my book, I call my book Imposter Syndrome Remedy instead of Imposter Syndrome Cure, because every time you take in new challenges and new tasks, new responsibilities, you will always feel that self-doubt. There are people who you think, they're so confident, and they just move on from one thing to another without any self-doubt, but you don't know what's going on in another person's head. They might be able to just manage, those self-doubt. It appears externally that they are confident, but the self-doubt sometimes, it does knock on your door. And the people who appear confident, they just know how to manage it well. Or maybe not, they might be faking it. We don't know. But for me, what I tell my clients, what I tell my students is that you need to be aware of your thoughts. And when you are aware of your thoughts, then you would be able to do something about it. So it's not a matter of trying to suppress it, trying to ignore the self-doubt. You need to acknowledge it so you can do something about it.
Okay. And you're talking about your book. Is that book available for the ladies in the Rockstar group or not?
Well, it's available on Amazon. They can download it on print, Kindle, or audiobook version. And what I find interesting is that my audiobook, the audiobook version of the book actually is more popular than the print. I think because people just want to listen now, either in podcasts or audiobooks. So I find it interesting that the audiobooks are more popular than the print. I don't get a lot of prints. There are a lot of Kindle, especially for those who are members of Kindle Unlimited. Like they can read as many books as they like on Amazon, but audiobooks are popular for all of my books right now.
They are becoming very, very popular. Hey, I think it's because we're becoming too lazy to actually read, and it's just more relaxing to be able to listen.
That's
Although
right.
I struggle
it's like
with that.
someone is talking to you. I think for some people as well, they listen to the audiobooks while driving or when they're at the gym. So it's trying to maximize their time. Yeah.
I know my husband loves audiobooks. I like to be able to read it. When I listen to the audiobooks, I feel like I want to fall asleep, and then I miss what I needed to hear. So I'd like to read. Well, I want to ask you, the next thing I want to ask you is, how do we cope with imposter syndrome?
Imposter syndrome, yes. Before we talk about the coping, can I just identify the characteristics? So if you're not sure if you have imposter syndrome, because I talked about it in the sense that it's a general feeling of self-doubt, incompetence, inadequacy. But
so there's more.
Well, the characteristics is that first, people who experience imposter syndrome have this inability to internalize success. So when they achieve success, they couldn't attribute it to themselves because of the self-doubt. So, for example, they would achieve a fantastic goal that they set out to do. They would say, I just got lucky. It's not that I was good, the stars aligned and I just got lucky. Or if someone gives them a compliment or if they get an award, they would say, people are just being nice to me. They don't want to offend me, so they say all these nice things. So it's almost like you can't really accept that you are good at what you do. And even if the external world is telling you and giving you praises and accolades and so on, you can't internalize it. It's either you got lucky, people are being nice. And for me, because I experienced this myself, I ask, why are they making such a big deal out of it? It wasn't that difficult. I did something, it went well. I'm not really sure why everybody's making such a fuss because it wasn't hard. And what I don't realize is that it's not hard for me because I know what I'm doing. And it's amazing for others because it is amazing. You know what I mean? So
Exactly.
it's that inability to internalize success. You cannot believe that you're doing great things. So one of the ways to remedy that is really just embracing your success, gratitude and celebration of what you're accomplishing, and recognizing that yes, there might be an occasion where you got lucky, but you did something with luck. Some people, luck passes them by and they don't even do anything with it. In
Mhm.
your case, yes, you might have gotten lucky, but you did something with it, right? So it's really recognizing and embracing that you have done something amazing, and celebrating it. The
Yeah.
second characteristic of people with imposter syndrome is maladaptive perfectionism. They have maladaptive perfectionist tendencies. What I mean by that is we need to differentiate between adaptive and maladaptive, because perfectionism is okay to an extent where you do something, you review what you've done, and you refine it. So the next time you do it, you get better and better and better. That's adaptive perfectionism. It's you keep learning, you keep growing, you find ways to improve your performance next time. And it's recognizing that it's a learning process. You
Mm.
don't beat yourself up when something is not perfect yet. There's always room for improvement and growth. That's adaptive perfectionism. Maladaptive perfectionism, on the other hand, it's when you focus only on the flaws, when you don't recognize the good things that you've done, and you beat yourself up, over the tiny trivial things that you think is a mistake. So for example, for me, I go on podcasts, I deliver value, and the only thing that I could notice is the time when I stumbled, that when I stutter and when I was lost for words, without recognizing that actually 95% of the interview I was actually doing well. I was just focusing on the time when I just lost my train of thought. So if I could turn it into adaptive perfectionism, I recognize that there's a 5% room for improvement, but I don't beat myself up for it. I embrace it as an opportunity to learn, rather than, oh, I'm a fraud, I just couldn't perfect it. You know what I
Mm.
mean? So for people with imposter syndrome, they have these maladaptive perfectionist tendencies, that they
Okay.
focus on their flaws instead of seeing it as an opportunity to grow. They
Mm.
see it as a limitation. They
Mm.
see it as a barrier, and proving that they are a fraud. So
Okay.
that's the second characteristic. And the final characteristic is, with what I've said earlier, is this feeling that you will get caught, that people are going to find out that you are a fraud. So what happens with people who feel this way? They avoid risks, they
Mm.
avoid opportunities that could potentially expose them because it's out of their comfort zone. And as a result, they stagnate in their development, they stagnate in their careers. They don't take on leadership opportunities, for example, because they are afraid that when they step up, they are exposed, they are on the spotlight, and people are going to see their incompetence and their inadequacy. So they shy away from
Mm.
challenges, they shy away out of their comfort zone, because they are afraid that if they do, they're going to make mistakes, they're going to fail, and they're going to be exposed as a fraud. So when you recognize these characteristics, it would be easier for us to manage imposter syndrome, because awareness is key. Recognizing that it exists without shame. I mean, for me, even as I talk about this, I've written books about it, I've coached clients who have imposter syndrome, and yet I still feel this way sometimes. It's a human experience to feel self-doubt, to feel fear. That's actually the title of my third book, Fear is Not My Enemy, because there's a lot of fear as well. When you experience imposter syndrome, it's the fear of rejection, the fear of failure, the fear of being exposed. So these are human emotions that we experience. And when we embrace and recognize that it's okay to feel this way, then we are more able to explore where these thoughts are coming from, where these feelings are coming from, and then we can do something about it. So in terms of managing your imposter syndrome, the first step really is being aware that it exists, being aware of the symptoms, how it impacts on your health and your relationships, your well-being, because there are different ways that people mismanage imposter syndrome. There are those like me who feel self-doubt so much that we end up overworking, we overstretch ourselves just to cover what we think are imperfections. So for me, there was a time when I was an academic, I would work 60 hours a week. So what we did, we
Wow.
prepared lectures, we wrote books, we wrote research papers. And when I write, I end up reading and reading and reading and editing over and over and over and over again, because I always feel that it's not good enough. And if I don't put in the hours, if I don't put in the work, then people are going to find out that I'm incompetent, when actually it's already good. Maybe it's 99% okay, but I would say it can get better, 1% more, 1% more. And I have like what we call like diminishing returns on the effort. It's like, even if I put in more, it's not really, it doesn't really matter anymore. But what happens is I was overstretching myself, I was overworking myself, I didn't have a social life, I was burned out. And by the time when I had my own family, when I had my baby, I didn't have 60 hours anymore.
No.
So it's just not possible. So it could lead to, an identity crisis. That's what happened in my case, because for me, I identified myself as someone who can do well, who can excel, but only if I have 60 hours to put into the work. But
Ah,
when those 60 hours a week was taken away, I just like, okay, now they're gonna find out that I'm incompetent. So even if I've achieved success in the past, I still couldn't internalize it, because I would say things like, it wasn't that I was good, it was because I was working 60 hours a week. So it's still not helping in terms of me recognizing that I'm actually good at what I do. I'm still attributing it to the external factor that I had all that time to work on it. And if